Welcome to Ultra Catalyst. I'm your host, Stephen Nosek. We'll be exploring the one decision people make to drive change in their lives. Join me each week to hear from a variety of guests about what they did, the techniques and strategies they used, and how they're now leading their best lives. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, listeners. Hopefully you're having a wonderful weekend. I'm your host, Stephen Nosek. Welcome to the Ultra Catalyst podcast. Today we got a special guest in the house, my friend Anthony. We will talk to him in just a minute. Now, for those that are just checking out this channel, well, what are we all about? Well, we're about talking to everyday people, listening to their backgrounds, identifying what are those elements in their life where they just weren't having it, and there was that spark that changed everything. Maybe it was their decision, spiritual, health, financial, relationship, business, you name it. They made some sort of change for the better. And now they're living some of the best life they've ever lived, and they're continuing on their journey, and they're here to share their story with us. So let's begin today and welcome our guest, Anthony Shepard. What's up, man? How are you doing today?
What's up, Steven? Great to be on the show. Thanks for having me on, brother. I appreciate you a whole lot.
Oh, thank you, brother. Thank you. It's good to see you. I know we connected about two and a half weeks ago on a 360 driven society call. And man, what you're doing, what I've been following you on Facebook and Instagram really resonates. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today. Sound okay?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Well, before I get into kind of those tidbits that I'm going to uncover, can you give us just a little brief background of how you came about into personal development and into the 360 driven entrepreneurs and society group?
Oh man, where to begin there? Well, I'm the oldest of four. My father was a civil servant. He didn't serve in the military or nothing, but I come from a military family. He was a firefighter.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been around kind of, you could say, personal development throughout my entire life. And as youngins, we figure out we're going to go mow yards or try to wash somebody's car to make a little money because there's something maybe we want to get.
Yeah.
And it's just gone from there. But I would say it's been 4 or 5 years back, since we're in 2023 now, that I was at a stage in my life that I was tired of moving around from shops. I'm a mechanic by trade. I've been doing that pretty much all my life. I've been turning since I was 7. Various other jobs throughout, but as for the mechanic, it's always been there. And I got approached by a gentleman that had his own shop at one time, and I tried like the devil to get in and work for him because I knew there was something there, and I'd always wanted to. Mm-hmm. Well, the opportunity came years later that he would approach me, and this was supposed to be the end-all be-all of shops, where it was going to be the standard set, and it seemed to have the right structure at that point and moment in time, but the outcome was it really wasn't the right setup. It was fine for who I was trying to work with, but as for the business owners, that was not the right mix. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the biggest downfalls that it had. But during that time, I reached out to a gentleman named Tony Watley. Mm-hmm. And I messaged him on an email, and I didn't know whether he would respond or not. I knew of and who he was, but I didn't actually really know him. Mm-hmm. You know, he's been in the car scene for at least 20 plus years. Yeah, I know he used to do articles, and he's had a few cars covered in magazines. So I sent him an email, and lo and behold, he actually replied. I still have the email to this day. That's something I'll never forget.
Mhm.
And I poured my heart out, but he was like, there's nothing I can do unless they reach out, because I didn't have any type of ownership. I was just the lead tech. And from there, he sent me, we went back and had a few conversations. I understood, but he sent me a copy, first 2 chapters of his book.
Mhm.
And then that led to me grasping into the 365 driven entrepreneur side of it, which led to the society, and which branched out through many different things.
Mhm. Mhm.
What else?
Well,
How much deeper?
yeah, no, that's awesome. So let's dig into some of the stuff that you're doing now, right? Mechanic by trade, right? You like to get your hands dirty, right? I remember, gosh, I was like 16, 17. Some of my relatives used to call me grease monkey because I literally was working on my car like every single weekend because that fucker kept breaking down, right? So I got a little experience, but it's been many years since I turned any wrenches. What's kind of your favorite cars that you're working on now? I think I've seen in a lot of the videos that you post are Corvette related, right?
Yes, sir. It didn't used to be my favorite. Oh man, that used to be pulling teeth to get me to even touch or think about working on a Corvette. But
Wow.
of course, where I started out in general,
Hmm.
which was, and I was heavy line, but they also did muscle cars. I started really where I got an education is Bob's Auto Express
Okay.
off of Spring Cypress. And that's where I got a true education and some humbling. Oh, I got humbled. But I also learned a lot, because that's where the education of the flow
Hmm.
came from, for to learn the eye for detail and how it comes together to create the whole versus just a little window.
Hmm.
And from there, I always wanted the performance side more than the general. A
Hmm.
lot of people like to complain about general, where you become that grease monkey and busted knuckle garage education.
Hmm.
There's a lot of the physical mass parts, the heavy line stuff, motor, transmission, suspension, exhaust. That was all mine. That was my specialty. That stuff's gravy work. The electrical now, that's a different ball game there. It's not
Yeah.
just gravy. For some who understand and just see it, then it's super easy for them. But for guys who don't fit under dashes and getting into a pretzel anymore is not my cup of tea. So it came to a point to where I got into late model racecraft back
Okay.
in 2016. And that's where I got immersed into Corvettes and Camaros. And he had a few trucks that would come in here and there that he really
Hmm.
didn't push. Um, just a variety, but the main platform was General Motors. And that's where it took hold. Working on a Corvette became super easy, because the ones I originally worked on, we're talking 1960s,
Oh, sweet.
1970s, into the 80s. The only one I don't work on to this day is that ugly octopus motor, and I'll leave it there because it has no sex appeal. It is just a square block. So for all them Corvette guys out there, they're gonna get a little stung by that one, because there's a few that just idolize that car that I've come across, but it's not the gym. If you want the gym, for me, the gym is the bubble mouth. That is the most
Okay.
beautiful Corvette they ever made.
Describe that. What's that look like in the front all the way to the back, right? What are some of the key features if someone was looking at a car show or driving down the road and they actually saw one of those models?
Well, the bubble, it's unlike any other. You can't mistake it. It's got a nice sculpted round body, got nice clean curves, but in the front, it's just got this big old grill smile
Mm-hmm.
with in an oval shape of a mouth, and it glides, and it just always smiles at you, and it's got a nice rump in the back,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not too streamlined where
Yeah.
it's gonna cut. It's more or less the hourglass figure of the Corvettes.
Yeah.
So it's really the most attractive for me because it has more curves.
Yeah. It makes sense. It makes sense. When I was younger, my stepdad actually had a Corvette. I think it's like 1971 or 72, 73. And it was a kind of like a metallic gold dust color. But it was faded, right? I mean, this was probably in the 90s, but he had it for like 20, 30 years, right? And I just remember being taken around in it, and you have the window down with your hand out the window, and it's something else riding in a Corvette, right? Especially my family didn't have anything like that for the longest time. We had some neighbor friends that had Corvettes, but yeah, there's just something about it, that American muscle car of the Corvette that just stands out. That's awesome that you've had that much experience and you're working on those things regularly.
Yes, sir. Deal with my favorite package to do is an 850 horsepower package. That's the best of all. Daily driven, go drive it to the track, have fun with it, drive it back home. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be a trailer queen. I do not agree with any of these guys who love to put them in a bubble and keep them in the garage. They were designed to be driven and enjoyed, not sit there and look pretty and collect dust and be wiped off. So I don't agree with anything that you can't go drive. I don't care how exotic or rare it is. It was meant to be driven. It's
Well,
not
yeah.
all aluminum Bugatti or anything. It's a Corvette. Go drive it.
Yeah, you're supposed to strap in and put your foot on the pedal and let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, you want to be in a safe environment if you go a little excessive with the speed, but at the same time, um, what I like about them is the sound that comes out of the exhaust on some of them, especially the early model ones or the ones you were describing. Newer ones, yeah, just their design's a little awkward, but there's just something about the sound of a Corvette as it's taking off, right? Especially from 0 to 45, 60, whatever it is. It just sounds something else. I've seen in some of your videos, kind of neat. It sounds like you're tuning them because you have them actually running, and then you could hear the exhaust when you turn them up a little bit, which is kind of neat. Do you take a lot of videos when you're doing work on the cars? Or?
When I'm not super swamped, then I make the time for the videos. But if there's a backlog of stuff I got to deal with, there'll be spans that I don't constantly do videos. But I do try to regularly, not just show what I can do, but to help educate,
Yeah.
especially when there's issues or things that get overlooked from all these keyboard warriors or my buddy this or hey, this buddy, his buddy that. There's a lot of that out there, and everybody has such a uneducation about what they're receiving. They don't know whether it's true or if it's false. So they really don't know which way to go. And until they understand it, they won't have that direction. But they have to seek to understand it. But most just want to fall in the category of they're average, complacent. Oh, my buddy said this, we're good. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. And I I remember from my days as a mechanic, and you've even said this, I think it was like 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks ago, that you don't really know what's going on until you actually look under the hood, right? You could hear the sounds, you could kind of see what some of the symptoms are, but until you really diagnose the problem, all that other stuff is just kind of hearsay, right? Like, and
100%.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I remember you had a video, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, where someone brought something in and they keep being told that they need to replace X, Y, and Z, and you're like, no, that's not even the problem. That has nothing to do with it. I think it was like a starter or something like that, but it turned out to be the rocker or something else like that. I forget at the moment, but
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've
yeah.
had here just in the last month to 2 months, I've had 5 of the same issue. And the issue is their car is running fine one day. And then the next day on a cold start, something to them seems just a little off. It was just a touch bit slow.
Mm-hmm.
And they're out driving it, and enjoying the car. And for some, they stop for gas or they go somewhere to get a bite to eat, or an even more recent one, it actually died going onto the interstate. And their vehicle ends up shutting off. The motor stops running. Okay, so they pull over or put in wherever they're at, and they're back in park, and they try to restart it. Well, it tries to start, and it's an extremely slow and low sound dragging.
Mm-hmm.
Like the motor's having such a super hard time to turn over. It can't. It's like gasping for air, but you can't gasp for the air.
Gotcha.
And then there's nothing. The button won't work. It doesn't go click, 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 click.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't do anything. What has just happened is the starter has just had an excessive amount of a power surge on amperage draw and backfed through the system and blew the 300 amp battery fuse that supplies it power to be able to turn it over from all of the excess strain that is caused, typically, not always, from a bearing failure. Because you can have the motor still turn over with a rod bearing going bad or getting ready to go out. Or if it tries to window the block, it'll still turn. If the mains go, it's not going to turn. It'll lock up bigger than a hat band on a hat. You're not moving it. Now, it could have blown a head gasket, got a hydro lock. Well, if you pull all the plugs out, the motor will still turn over. These motors won't turn over when they're hot because everything is just
locked up. Yeah.
And the biggest has been crappy bearings have been failures. Excessive bearing clearance have been failures. I mean, there's other issues that will cause the failures in that area, but that's typically what it comes down to. If you can't spin it over, you had something locked up. So you got to figure out what locked up and why.
Yeah, and information from your buddy or online or a friend of a friend's cousin, right, that lives around the corner, right? That information isn't going to help you.
Not always. It may give you a point of reference to start. And some of it, not everybody, there are some good information sources out there. But if they're not in the trenches doing it constantly and they're asking people, your chances of it being successful are extremely limited versus getting a reputable person who's been doing it for however many years. I mean, I've been doing it professionally since 2008. And I've been in the and performance has always been there. And so that's a different ballgame. but you got to deliver enough information to provide the doctor to get to the source, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what a mechanic is. I'm a doctor, I'm a surgeon, I'm a detective, I'm a comforter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's so many hats that you actually wear if you break it down through the sections and with a customer.
Dude, that's a fantastic analogy. Honestly, I never thought about that, right? I've brought my car in a lot of times, but what you just described, and when I think through like my interactions with a car mechanic or a repair shop, you got to do a lot of those things, right? You have to have empathy because their product is not working up to their expectation, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and as we all know, right, people could be get a little frustrated, right? Because that's digging into their lifestyle, their livelihood, their ability to go from A to B to C to pick up the kids or whatever it is. But dude, that's awesome. That's like the best analogy that I think I've ever heard for a mechanic. That not only do you wear different hats, you also wear different coats, like a doctor or an analyst or anything like that. That's awesome. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
That's tight.
But my other part of my background, because see, there's a lot out there. Well, I'll dive into this real quick because I know you want to move
Yeah,
into some of the other stuff.
all good.
Who believe they know how to build a motor and how to clean a motor. Well, I used to be one of those guys. I really did, until I worked in a full-blown engine machine shop that built primarily nothing but race engines. And let me tell you, I didn't know my butt from a monkey's hole in the ground at all. And the thoroughness that you actually should have when it comes to building the motors doesn't happen in 99% of the areas are out and around, period, because they just don't allot for the time. They want it done now. But that was a completely different eye opener when I actually worked in a engine machine shop.
Yeah.
And then I also get the question, I've had it pop up a few times because we've had some built motors come in and I've sent them back. And they're like, do you have someone that is a machinist? I don't ever claim to be a machinist because I'm not a actual engine assembler.
Mm-hmm.
But as for a builder and knowing what to look for and how to tear it down and properly inspect it, clean it, and reassemble it, I can catch them. So yeah, I have a machinist background, and a lot really don't know how to deal with that when you kick it back at them.
Yeah, I could
Especially,
imagine, right?
especially when you get nerdy on them and use technical terms. Like some like the example is they claim that there's no metal in some of these machine shops.
Hmm.
Well, that's a false statement is all get out, because if you do any type of machining, you have metal.
Yeah,
When you
there's
bore the block, you've had metal shavings. If you hone the block, when you deck the block, it's all from the machining process. There's
yeah.
going to be metal. That's the funny stuff. But one of the biggest things I've been in here lately is my fitness goal, my
Yeah, that's
fitness
where we're
journey.
going next, man. I want to hear all about it. I know you just eclipsed over 1,000 pounds
Yes, sir.
and leg press, which is fucking insane, brother. But take me back. What got you into fitness and your journey, right? I know it's a little more recent in terms of actually setting a goal for something like that, right? 4 digits. I mean, that's bonkers, dude. But then again, I do bonkers shit too. So, Kind of tell us just a little bit about like your start recently on this leg press quest, and I'm going to get into the other things that you got now on your radar that you want to go after. So,
All right. Well, it's been we're in 2023. It's been 2 years.
okay.
Oh, 2.5 years, really. I didn't have anybody that drew me to the gym when I was younger. I didn't do sports in high school and all that. And I was at a point to where I had enough pokes from people and the way I felt I wasn't happy with. And I didn't like what I saw in the mirror. I just finally hit that point at that age. I mean, I'll be 40 this year, so it really started to hit me at 38.
Wow, that's pretty
And
recent.
yeah. And it was, you do mechanics as long as I have, and the guys that have been doing it longer, they're going to resonate with it. Takes a toll on you. The vibrations through impact wrenches, your air ratchets, your 3/8 guns, all of it. When you have ricochet come back from breaking bolts loose, that's the worst now. It gives me chills just thinking about it. And you get that recoil pop through and it travels up.
Yeah.
And I was in a mastermind group, and my business coach, before he became my business coach, would just nudge just right. And so initially, back in 21, I did start to get into the gym. There was a spell where I think I stayed like 3 months solid, and I had an accountability partner. And so we were doing videos, trying to, get back into it. Well, his schedule ended up changing, and I hadn't been doing it long enough to make it a habit.
Yeah.
Or to make it part of my lifestyle. So I fell off, like everybody. I had all the excuses, but it was easy for me just not to go because I hadn't really achieved anything that I knew I could achieve or wanted to achieve. I didn't have goals with it. It was just getting back in shape. And that was pretty much it. So after that, in the mastermind, they would bring it up, light a fire under my ass about it. And you're like, if you're gonna do it, come on. So 38, January 1st of 2022, I got serious with it. For the first 4 months, I was in the gym 3 days a week.
Wow.
And then I was looking at trainers in the beginning. And my initial trainer was a competitor. And it just didn't work out for us to get together because of that. Then my next trainer, who I was attracted to from his work ethic, was James Garland. We got Amp Labs up in the house, y'all. So if you need a good trainer, you talk to Jimmy. He was my first trainer, and we were 2 days a week. And I wanted him solely for upper body. Now, the purpose of a trainer is not to do the weight for you. They are solely there for their knowledge, to make sure you're doing your form and technique right, and to train you in the proper exercises to achieve what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad spin on trainers, and people have a total misunderstanding of what their trainer is actually supposed to do. It's their responsibility. Well, no, your responsibility is to show up each and every time on time, if not early, and do the work that they tell you to do. And then you're supposed to learn it and remember it and incorporate it as you grow, because you have to build the proper foundation before you can
100%.
even expand on it. So I was with Jimmy for 6 months. 6 months. And then his schedule ended up changing to where our timetables didn't align, and I wasn't able to alter mine to where we could stay working together. And during this time, I was getting in my leg press. For my lower body regimen, I was pretty sound with the exercises I had going on. Because with the original first person I was trying to work with, I just stayed with his evaluation regimen that he took me through. And that was working for me. I was happy. I was moving weight, and I could tell the difference.
And really quick, and the goal at this time wasn't to lift a lot of weight, right? It was just to get back into the gym, starting to be a little more healthy, get a little stronger, toner, get the right form, right? You weren't thinking anything like a longer term goal or had your sights on like competition or anything like that, right? You didn't have any of that.
Nothing yet. Not to that point yet. Let's see, where was I? No, I didn't have any of the heavyweight goals there yet. Those would develop later in the year. The more closer we got to the end of 2022, rolling into 2023. But after his schedule changed, and then it just didn't mesh. There was about a 2-month period that I didn't have a trainer. And I didn't know if I wanted another one, but I ended up getting another one. And I've been working with her ever since. That's Carrie. And we've been together since the middle of October of last year.
Okay.
And this is where things start to change. Because I have a circle. Your circle is so important. You're like, how many plates you gonna do the day? When I would get to the leg press, or after they saw my video, I'm like, hey, how many plates you gonna do? So I was like, okay. And there's always been the big hype about the 1,000-pound club. Well, that kind of snuck in the background about that. But the way they measure it for the 1,000-pound club is your bench press, your deadlift, and your squat. Well,
so like all combined?
All combined will put you into the 1,000-pound club. Well, I wasn't doing a whole lot of bench press or deadlifts or squats. I was happy with learning the dumbbells, getting proper movement on cables, and what I was doing on leg press and leg curls and extensions, inner and outer hip adductors. So I hit a point that I broke 800. And then the bug hit me. It was once I hit a weight level and I broke it, that's where the bug came in. So after that came in, I wanted to see where I could go.
How many plates is 800, by the way? Plates on each side.
It's around, it depends on the machine. Because I go to 2 different gyms. So each head unit of the hip sled is different.
Yeah.
It's different. So when I it's going to be close to 8 plates
Okay.
plus the machine. It's going
Plus
to
the
get you
machine,
really
right.
close. And so once I did that, I had no idea who I actually had spot me one day because I wanted to try it.
Yeah.
I knew I could do 7 plates, no problem. But I was already tired because my reps, I do 4 sets of 15. I go for longevity. I don't do the low route.
Yeah.
I got trained by old school bodybuilders.
Yeah.
So the more reps it counts. And I have the energy and strength that I can go the distance. But the day that I broke it, I asked a gentleman that I only ever knew his first name in the gym. It was Gene. I asked Mr. Gene if he'd spot me. Well, he spotted me that day, and he got a solid 7 reps out of me.
Wow.
Yeah, I was gonna go for 5, but he pushed me to another 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right, well, if I can hit that, then I can hit the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can hit the next level, I can hit the next level. And I just kept stacking it. And that's what it took, because the way I look at weights is different than how other people look at weight.
Mm-hmm.
I don't throw typically the 25 or a 10 or a 5 or 2.5 or anything else on it. I throw a plate. A plate is only 45 pounds. So for leg press and in the other areas, that plate for me is how everybody else looks at that 10 pound or that 25 pound or a 5 pound.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it works, and that's how I eat it.
Shit, man, that's a lot. That's a lot to eat as you go up weight.
Well, that's how a lot of people see it, and that's a lot.
Right.
But I see it the opposite. For me, it's not a lot. I see the 45 as the 10 pound.
Yep, that makes sense.
And so if I can lift 45 pounds, no matter what, you can lift 45 pounds. I can lift 90 pounds because it's essentially what you're adding every time, because it's 1 on each side. I can lift 90 pounds. It's only 90 pounds. So when you stay in that focus is only this much, and you don't let others tell you that's a lot of weight, or are you sure you can do that, or any of the other things that they're just accustomed to saying, you're gonna do it. Because I knew if I could get 860, I could get 950. If I could get 950, I could get the 1,010 I wanted. And that's just where it became, and that bug, just like when you have horsepower. Everybody likes to talk about, oh, they've got 500 horsepower, 600 horsepower. And I feel like we're so back in 1992, 1994 numbers. We're in 2023. You should be able to have 850 horsepower, reliably daily driven, and you should be able to get 18 to 23 miles to the gallon with it, with your foot out of it. So if you just drive it, you should be able to have, but if you want to use it, you should be able to use it, and it should work. But everybody, so the weight was my horsepower, and I wanted more and more, and I got my more and more.
And you're up over 1,100 pounds, and from about when you finished the 800, what, about 3.5 months, something like that.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Something like that. Yeah.
That's
huge.
But here's, it is very huge. But here's the thing for all you guys listening. This didn't happen overnight, okay? understand, when I started my fitness journey on the leg press machine, my first gym I went to and where I pretty much go, the head unit weighs 120 pounds. I could only do that with a single 45 on one side. So I could only do 165 pounds when I first started of actually doing leg presses. And it took me a year. This was a solid year of work.
Mm-hmm.
I went from 3 days in the gym to 5 days in the gym. I also take supplement. It took months to figure out what I liked and what I didn't like. I know what protein, because we don't get good protein really in none of this processed junk or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I want good protein. I also went through pumps and pre-workouts, and I know what works for me, but it took months and months to find what my body responded to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. So many give up so soon when the light is really just around the corner, and you just got to stay with it. Because if you don't, you're never going to see the result.
Yeah, 100%. And to get back to what you're just describing, it's about that consistency, right? It's getting into the gym on the days you don't feel like it. Your muscles are going to be sore, just like you said earlier before we started. Your hip was giving you problems here and there more recently due to stretches, right? But you still got up and you went in, you put in the work. And the reality is every step forward is progress, right? Even if it doesn't feel like it, even if your emotional side, your mind says, I ain't doing it. Well, let's face it, after about 5-10 minutes in the gym, you're either going to feel like shit or you're going to go, that wasn't that bad. Let's keep going, right?
100%. But here's the thing. When you first get going to the gym, understand that everybody is on different levels.
Mm-hmm.
They're at different points of their own journey. Where you are is where you are. Don't compare yourself to what anybody else is doing, because you can get the most benefit out of doing light weights with the correct form and technique as you more than you can lifting heavy. Heavy is just for building strength
Mm-hmm.
and putting on mass. The lightweight is where it truly is, because that's where the bodybuilders, the beach bodies, anything you can imagine on that shred, how you want to define it and look, well, that's where it's at. Along with the reps, those are your keys.
It's funny you say that. I do some coaching on the side for different athletes, right? Especially in the ultra endurance space, right? Because I really enjoy triathlons. A few years ago, I got into ultra running. That for anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's any distance longer or greater than a marathon, right? 26.2 miles is a marathon. And I'm a big dude, right? I'm over 6 feet tall. A few months ago, I was like 250. And I completed my very first 100-mile race on the third attempt within 12 months, right? And that is a grueling frickin' thing. But you're absolutely right. It's show up, put in the work, and you don't have to lift a ton of weight. Like I'm in the gym 5 days a week, and I lift probably less than everybody there. And I'm not trying to compare, but I take my time. I stick to the number of reps I need, and I focus on form. Because when you're trying to go for these goals, just like your 1,000-pound plus, and what we'll talk about in a second about the competition that you want to get into, for any of the distances that I do, it's not about the muscle mass. It's about the muscle endurance over time, right? Because if you don't have the stamina in your muscles, they're going to fail either way. I mean, you could be as big as the Rock, or you could be a little toothpick, like a lot of these Ethiopian runners that you see winning Boston, New York marathons, right?
Right.
Um, um, or Kenyans. I'm sorry, wrong state. Ethiopians also run, but Kenyans are pretty world famous of late for all their running distances, and they're not big and bulky, right? I personally don't want to be a big and bulky dude. I was that guy. And when I was in high school, I played football, and I don't think I ever hit the 1,000 pounds in one, but I definitely was over 1,000 pounds collectively because I was just a fat MFer at the time. But it's moving forward, because I don't want to go too much into myself. But I agree. I think that when you set that goal and you start working backwards, right? You say, hey, you know what? In a few months, I'm going to hit 1,100 pounds, 1,000 pounds is the goal, right? I'm going to keep going. And you work backwards. Okay. And you said it beautifully. You are where you are at today. Don't compare yourself to anybody else around you, right? Because none of that matters, right? You can't jump from where you're standing to where you think someone else is, because you don't know everything about them, right?
Exactly.
You can only go from where you're at. And that's where you have to like put down your ego, right? And really think through it.
Exactly. Tremendously. There's no room for the ego for you to achieve your goals. It's good to be confident,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not good to be arrogant.
Yeah. Well said.
Now for your little teaser you've been going at.
Yeah.
Well, when I initially went for my goal, I actually didn't fail at it. Somebody else was doing the math,
Hmm.
and instead I failed at it. And so I was still good with where I thought it ended up with, because that was a lot of freaking weight.
Yeah.
But the initial goal was just to break 1,000, to hit 1,010, because that's where the math was going to end up.
Mm-hmm.
The other goal came about because it's where I failed at, actually. I hit the 1,020 and I failed at 1,110. So 1,110 became the new goal.
And you failed at it.
Right. And where I failed at it is when they thought I had 930 and the next one was going to break 1,000. So the next one was it was more than that. It was the 1,110. I hit the 930 was actually 1,020. When you go
Oh, I
back and
got you.
review
Yeah.
the footage and you count the plates, because we set the machine up how I set it up at the other gym.
Oh, and they didn't account for the weight of the sled, right?
Uh-huh. Exactly. 100%. That's what happened.
Oh man. I bet it would
And
have been, when you heard that, you were probably a little flustered, right? And then you're like, you, you have to go through and kind of recalculate what everything is, right?
no, because when I was pretty tired, but I was really happy still with believing initially that I only hit 930 pounds, because I just maybe a month before that broke 800
So
and
so
got
for the
X amount of reps.
so for the 930, when you pushed it, which was really a 1,020, right? Um,
Yes.
was that the very first time you actually pushed it?
Yes. That
Oh,
was
sweet.
the very first time I actually, and I did, but my video failed. I think I had a phone call come through because it
Okay. Yeah.
caught the
Yeah.
tail end after I was getting up.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually did it twice, and I had different witnesses that actually saw me push it. And in the beginning of the video, a woman even commented, "He's got a lot of weight on there."
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, yeah. but I did it twice. And then when I redid my goal, when I got to the 1,020 again, just to show it wasn't a fluke, I pressed it twice.
Yeah.
Before moving for the 1110.
Now, did you do that all in the same day and in the
Yes.
same location, or?
Yes. It was at Legacy Barbell with my trainer and my business coach when I ended the year out with it. It was literally a month to the day later when I went for that much weight again.
Wow,
Now,
that's fast progression to go up 2, 3, almost a little more than 300 pounds.
Well,
but you're counting plates like people count inches. You're counting feet, right? I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
Now, for the little bug that came about, I was at a bodybuilding show that had a strongman competition going on. I was there to support my trainer, my first trainer at the time, checking him out, seeing his booth, seeing his other products, and just mingling and meeting other vendors. Well, there was a competition going on besides the bodybuilding, which was nice. And it's pretty amazing to how some of these men and women look and what they actually can achieve on their definition. That was all interesting and fine and dandy. But what caught me was the competition going on. Now, the competition, that was a strongman competition.
Wow.
And I just wanted to go in and join. And I had multiple people tell me, "Oh, you're not ready for that. That's totally different training." I don't care. I want to go see if I can do it.
Yeah, definitely.
And so now that I shattered the 1,000-pound club atmosphere thing just with one exercise, my main focus and drive is a strongman competition, because that really grabs my attention.
Now, let me ask you this. On the strongman competition, is it multi-lift, or do they have like single lift slots that you're competing against, or do you have to be all around? What kind of describe what that strongman competition looks like?
It's a very diverse.
Okay.
It's all around. Some of the competition, you have what they call a farmer's walk, which I guess it originated from farmers, because they're always carrying buckets down through the field, with feed or water, or wherever they got to go with it, or back up to the house. So they incorporated the farmer's walk. And that's and it's the only way I can understand it, where it came from. You're carrying a bunch of heavy crap for X amount of distance. Okay, you've got that one. Moving giant boulders, which they call the Atlas stones, from the ground onto a pedestal. That is interesting, but it's not overly attractive to me. But it's one of those we'll see. I will try it. Squats are in there. Some of the older style strongman is going to be hopefully coming back around, because back in the day, they actually used to lay on their backs under platforms and press log.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen that.
You also have the log press, where you pull it up and clean it from the floor, and you press it overhead. So you've got that. They've got a different type of squat. This the keg barrel squat, or keg basket squat. And that's actually going to be coming up real soon here locally, that I'm going to go attend the event. But it's a basket that's got X amount of kegs in it already. And you have to pick it up and you have to squat it and stand back up. So you've got to hold position and stay loaded. And then another keg gets rolled or thrown or dropped into the basket. And then you have to squat it again. And it's kind of, I guess you go to a point of failure.
Yeah.
Where you can't lift it no more. And it's just one repetition there. But one of the other big ones that attracts my attention is the Hercules.
Okay.
Now, for all you viewers out there who have ever watched the movie Hercules, not Kevin Sorbo's, not that Hercules, the Hercules with The Rock, Dwayne Johnson in it. When they're down in the dungeon and he's getting ready to kill the woman, and the guy from John Wick, who owns the hotel, is yelling at him of who he really is, and he's chained to the two pillars. Okay? And he actually rips them out, the chains out of the pillars with two big blocks and smashes the guy, right? Okay, so you get the premise. You're holding the pillars.
Oh, out like that, right?
No, you're just down at an angle.
Oh, you're down at an angle. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And the current holder is Mark Fillet right now, who has the record and then broke his record and reset the record. And I want to go for his record.
What's the record?
I think he's over 3 minutes.
Oh wow, 3 minutes. Oh, what's the weight on the sides that he's holding up?
Ooh, I don't know exactly the weight, but they're like 15 to 20 foot tall, somewhere in there.
But I mean, you're just
and it's just like the pendulum pickup where you start way forward, and it's only 250 pounds. And by the time you get to the back, you're at like 720. So you're at the back of the pendulum, downward angle. And this is all going to be mental grip, shoulder, back, bite, everything. Because you have to stay stationary. And once you say go and they pull and let the weight, you're holding it until you can't hold it no more.
Until you got to let go, and then it crashes down. And
and then they reset it.
Yeah, that sounds that just sounds bonkers, dude.
Oh, it's pretty awesome. So,
it is awesome because I'm sitting here trying to visualize it, right? I'm like, oh man, like that is one crazy hold, because you're contracting in a lot of muscles at the same exact time on both sides of your body while still standing up. And if you sway one side too much, or if you have some muscle imbalances, you're gonna get dragged. Yeah, you're gonna get wrecked.
That's when you have to let go. And oh man, it's that one really gets my attention, along with the show from Eddie Hall, Brian Shaw, Robert O'Neill, Nick Best. They're huge strongman competition, all of them multiple time winners. And they did that show, Discovery did that series. There's a lot of the ones that they went around and did that I'd like to try. There's also the fire truck pull, or the airplane pull, or the bus, whatever pull that they end up using really big, heavy apparatus that I just want to see if I can do it. I want to try and pull it.
I just saw it's one of those guys we're connected to, Mark, I forget his last name.
Henry?
I just seen him pull like a fire truck or like a semi like 2-3 weeks ago on one of his postings and something like that. I think he's up in the Dallas area.
Hmm.
But I was just like, dude, I remember seeing those, I think on like ESPN in like the 90s, right? They used to show a lot of strongman competition back in the day. Hadn't seen it for a while on television. But I mean,
Hmm.
obviously it's still there. When are you targeting that you're going to enter in the next one?
Well, if I wouldn't have screwed myself up from doing some new stretches, I would have went for the competition coming up here in April.
Okay.
But I probably am and should only be a spectator and not try to do nothing crazy and build myself up for there's two competitions in June
Hmm.
that are in Dallas. I just have to pick one of them. But they're similar in the competitions on what will actually be done.
Oh, okay. Now, do you have to alter the training, right? So a lot of the training that you've
Yes.
had for leg press and then some hamstrings, right? You got to balance out the muscles in those areas. For some of these other events that you're going to get into for strongman, do you have to alter your training much?
Yes. You want to train, you want to keep the areas that you're have become efficient in now
Hmm.
going, where you just keep the muscle memory alive. You don't have to push, I'm not trying to push 1,000 pounds again while I'm doing all this other training, but it's
Yeah.
more upper body. So I'm doing more bench press, more squats, and more deadlifts to
Hmm.
accommodate for the different types of lifts and movements that have to be done with these competitions. Because you
Yeah,
are,
that makes sense. I'd imagine you also have to work a lot on your core as well, right? Stability is going to be huge, especially for Hercules, or if you decide to lift any of the Atlas stones. I know you said that one doesn't resonate as much, but I could imagine just any one of these, right? Your core's got to be pretty tight from a stability point of view.
oh yes, your stabilizers are key. I mean, you can have some of the biggest dudes in the world, but if their stabilizers aren't there, they're not going to perform or be able to do it at all. And that's one of the huge things that you have to work on. It is your balance and your other stabilizers. Just because you have the big muscles, it's the little muscles that do all the work. The big muscles just support.
Yeah, that's
That's
so true. That's so true. I see that in triathlons and endurance running. When I first started, and I've only gotten into it, what, 3, 4+ years ago, ultra running in the last 2 years, um, I've had weak core muscles, man. And after a while, you just get tired. And for any one of these, you're swimming, biking, running, or even hiking, mountain runs, etc. If you don't have a good, strong core, you're going to get tired out fast. And then late stage in the game, you're pretty much just on fumes at that point, right? And it's a lot harder. I found myself, how do you say, hunching over towards like the last like 20 miles or 2, 3 hours of whatever event it was, and just like getting even more tired because then when you're hunched over, you can't breathe as well.
right. And
Core's
that's
key.
where, even though on the endurance, but you don't ever want that to happen during any of your pools
Yeah.
or workouts, because that's where you get tremendously hurt and injured. And that's because the stabilizers have hit their point,
Hmm.
and there's nothing left in the tank for them. And if you don't have enough and the big muscles to counteract the stabilizers, you're done.
You're cooked. You're cooked. Well, man, I wish you the best of luck as you go towards a strongman activities, man. And let me know when you're going to sign up for the competition. I'll see if I can make it out to Dallas. That's just a little far from where I'm at. I mean, well, we kind of live right around the corner from each other here in the Houston Conroe area, anyways. So, but man,
Right.
it's been a pleasure chatting with me. I got one last question for you. Tell everybody what your mission is now. What are you really aiming to do? Not just in strongman, but what is it about that Anthony Shepard that you're going to leave your mark on the world? Tough question.
Yeah, it's a really good question. The mark actually will tend to stay similar or parallel what the goal is. And right now the goal is for me is just redefining myself and finding me. That's why I really haven't pushed any of my business or my side work that I do, because it's been more about taking the time to find myself of who I am versus who I think I was going to be, or I should be, or was told I was supposed to be. So the mark, I guess, in what I am going to leave or have been leaving is to show others that they can achieve what I have achieved. A lot of these people that do the strongman are big SOBs. I'm not that big of a guy. All right. I'm 5'10" and I'm holding at 209 pounds. And I'm moving what I'm moving.
Yeah.
We're talking about guys that are 6'3", 6'5", 6'8", 350 and up. So that's my mark, is showing and taking everyone on the journey as I go through it, is they can achieve it. Because I look just like them. I was there just as they were. And they can accomplish what I have accomplished if that's what they want to choose to accomplish. But that's the key. They have to choose. That's what they want. And then they have to be dedicated to doing it. You can't just go 1 day a week. You can't just go 2 days a week. You've got to a minimum of 3 days a week, and you're going to be there at least an hour to 2 hours every time you're in a gym. So if you're not willing to do that, then you're not going to achieve results. Just like in business, if you're not going to dedicate the time to put in the work, you will not achieve the results. So you have nothing to complain for the work you did not do.
Well put, my friend. Well put. Where can people find you if they have more questions about auto mechanics, Corvette, engines, or even if they want to come hang out with you and check you out in the gym as you're training for the strongman? Where can they locate you at?
All right. The gym, I'm there on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday at Legacy Barbell, which is now Legion Barbell due to some logistics. So their name is getting changed, but it's still the same place, still the same owners, just that. If you want to find me on Instagram, it's ANP_garage. And Facebook is just my name, Anthony Shepard. And that's where the majority of all my personal development goes on, and what all's going throughout, just as me personally, more or less away from the business. It has been a blast. And thank you so much for having me on the show, Stephen.
Excellent, Anthony. I mean, brother, I'm so happy you took the invite to join us. We got to learn a little bit about you, kind of the struggles, where you came from, as well as you taught us a bunch of stuff about cars that I didn't even know about. I used to be a mechanic years ago, but I'm learning a lot from you. I can't wait to hang out even more, check you out at the gym. And for everybody listening and watching, go check out Anthony, either on Facebook, Instagram, or go hang out with him at the gym. He's doing some awesome stuff, and we're all standing behind you, cheering you on as you get ready to go compete within a strongman competition in the near future. Thanks for joining us, everybody, for the Ultra Catalyst podcast. We had Anthony and Stephen on our show today. Remember, hit like below, subscribe to us on the YouTube channel. You can check out this podcast on all kinds of different channels. And once again, just remember, identify what it is in your life that you want to ignite that change, and find the best way that you can move forward and live the best life you can. Thanks for tuning in. We'll check in with you next Sunday. Later on, everybody.